This is Ross Payton here with Roleplaying Public Radio, and this is episode 28, Great Expectations, and other GM and player expectations, dealing with those expectations in games and things. So, of course, with me is Mr. Tom Church.
Great grandstanding, Ross. May wild hyenas devour your testicles.
Oh, Tom.
I greet people that way now.
Oh, really?
It's just, I greet people that way. It's, Walker's like, hey, glad to meet you. I hope hyenas eat your testicles.
Really? I don't think your company.
Yeah, it's weird. People don't seem to like it as much as I do.
Yeah. Wow.
Go figure.
Who would have thunk it? But anyways, it's been a little while since we've done our last episode, so we've of course been doing a lot of D&D lately, 4th edition. We're 10 sessions of it so far. We've only posted the first,
and none of them are suitable for kids.
No, they're quite not safe for work, but they developed quite a following. People really dig the antics,
especially Cody. Cody's getting some serious pub from this one.
Yes, publicity. Yes. So I've been thinking, some of the people out there are using RPG designers are using what's called a ransom model for RPG design, which is to say, basically, you set up use this website fundable.com where people can pay in, and if a certain goal is met, then everyone who contributes so much money is actually charged. If the goal isn't met, no one loses any money. But if the goal is met, then I would then write a 4th ed D&D supplement for the New World campaign. Sort of like if you wanted to run your own campaign in the New World, I would write a little campaign primer, and if that turns out well, I could do a whole series about the New World, about all the describing the colony, all the major players in it, the Gripply tribe, which is very popular, and that kind of thing. So, what do you think?
Yes, well, we're certainly in this for the money. I mean, that's why we got started in this, right?
Yes, podcasting with no advertising and no sponsorships, or it's downloadable for free. We're definitely in it for the money.
Yeah, I think we might
about the most niche topic you can imagine outside of.
Yeah, and it's not exactly a very good thing to use as a front to sell meth or anything.
Yeah, it's not really a front, Tom, because a front is a way to disguise illegitimate activities or illegitimate funds. We're not getting.
You're just not using your imagination enough, Ross. We could use this to sell meth.
Well, of course we wouldn't, because you just kind of announced that, and that would be totally illegal and against.
But see, they wouldn't suspect it if we just flat out admitted it. See, always thinking, layers upon layers.
I am in awe of your logic sometimes, there, Tom.
Well, I try to stay humble, but Lord knows it is hard sometimes.
So anyway, this episode we're going to be talking about expectations. We got this great email from one of our listeners, and he had a problem with expectations. So when you're running a game, when you're starting a game, everyone has their own idea of how the game should be, and mostly they're compatible. I mean, if you're running a D&D hack and slash game, people generally know it's Diablo 2 with dice and graph paper.
And the ones that are kind of slightly foaming at the mouth, kind of muttering incoherently about swords and +3, spears of penetration, you can kind of guess, like, all right, well, this is going to go very well.
Right. So let's read the letter and find out first the problem of our listener. Fritz, well, his name is on here is Fritz Lipbaum, but I don't think it's that. Not his real name, but
hey, if it is your real name, kudos on that.
Yes. RPPR is hands down the best gaming podcast I've ever heard.
Aw.
I really like the format of the show. In particular, I really like how Ross provides abstract, generalized advice and information to elucidate principles. And then Tom provides specific instances of how he's implemented these ideas in the past and examples of what listeners might try in the future. You provide excellent advice, and your shows are highly entertaining.
Okay, Ross, seriously, that voice is starting to piss me off, all right? We're separated by a distance here, but I can close it in a very short time.
Oh, well, you're no fun, Tom. Anyway,
I know.
I'm starting up a new campaign, and there's an issue I've been struggling with. You mentioned in one of your shows it's necessary to quickly establish the setting and mood in the campaign so the players understand the internal rules of the setting. Something to that effect. It's been a while since I listened to that episode. I'm curious how you go about that, and moreover, I'm curious about how you go about establishing a setting rule set that all your players would find entertaining. Campaign I'm setting up is GURPS 3rd edition, and in the Old West and in 1868, I'm concerned that my players already have wildly different expectations about the game. I haven't run the first session yet, but one of the players has made an adventure character and clearly expects there to be an abundance of fantastical, impossible steampunk technology. Another player expects things to be more realistic. This player won't play D&D because the characters have too many hit points and can survive after being impaled on spears, etc. That's
yeah.
for player, like I don't want to survive this spear wound. That's
shit, man. If I got an axe in my head, I'm a dead man.
Yeah. That's pretty hardcore. This wouldn't be a problem, except that he feels the same way about GURPS, as lethal as combat in that system tends to be. In the conspiratorial GURPS one-shot game about American and British wizards fighting a secret proxy war during the American Revolution, and I'd like your ideas, please subscribe me to your newsletter. That sounds awesome, by the way. That's my little aside. One of the 40-point PCs was shot by a redcoat with a rifle. This injury reduced his hit points to -5, and he was knocked unconscious, but the PC doctor got a critical success on the first aid roll and restored his hit point back to +3, which let him continue on the adventure. I know the player recognized that letting the PC continue on was necessary, but at the same time, I could tell that what had just happened had broken his suspension of disbelief, as opposed to the American and British wizards. Yeah. Someone had been shot in the torso and was walking around a few minutes later, albeit at half move, and was a wizard, probably. So I guess my question is, how do you establish these rules or prevailing logic of a campaign? How should you balance those rules to suit the preference of players? Players listening to the above example will have very different expectations going into the opening campaign. How can I bring their expectations into unity? Thanks, keep making great shows. I think the New World is a great twist on D&D campaigns. I'm sorry if this email is unclear. I'm writing it early in the morning, and to me, he sent it. I got it around midnight, so I don't know what time zone he's in.
Yeah, I will have to say, if you actually think that shot once and being out of the fight for the rest of that battle, maybe even the session is your thing, then why?
Well, I mean, some players just have their own. There's no wrong way to have fun, Tom. And if that's
if that's what does it, I mean, I think that is odd enough.
Well,
I've forwarded that with a lot of players. Andy in particular, we mentioned him last episode a lot.
Yeah,
one reason he doesn't like D&D is that there's a battle is so abstract. Okay, I just took 30 damage. What does that mean?
Yeah. That's true. I mean, yeah, but there are systems that cater to that. Roll Master in particular, where you have hit location. Well, there's lots of systems that have hit locations.
Cyberpunk does that.
Roll Master, which has critical hit tables for everything, including walking. So if you fumble a walking roll, then you could die, because that's how Roll Master.
That's how they roll.
Yeah, exactly. It's fucking Roll Master. You have not. They have plasma critical hit tables, and it's a fantasy game.
I want that.
Yeah. You don't want to play it, though.
I don't want to play it, but shit. Come on, man. I got standards.
Well, anyway, so expectations, that's the name of the game. Dealing with expectations, the best time to deal with expectations, I think, overall, is before the game starts, and that's where Fritz
I think we've talked about this before along the lines of the social contract of the game.
Yeah. Everyone needs to lay out clearly what they want in the game. The GM says, I want to run this type of game. Like in Fritz's suggestion, I would say I'm running a realistic Western campaign, no steampunk. This is how much damage we'll do. Basically, if you get shot, you could die quickly.
It's like, this is Unforgiven, not Wild Wild West.
Right. But on the other hand, so that would please the realist player probably. But the realist player, Fritz should explain the injury rules in particular to the realistic players, so to get his feedback, to find out if those are realistic enough for him. If that's important to him. And for the steampunk player, that's going to be a problem. But on the other hand, there were inventors in the Wild West. I mean, there were people who made crazy stuff.
The Gatling gun comes to mind.
Plus, there's also prospectors and people discovering things and explorers. So,
And as for that, the whole realism thing, walking away from a gunshot wound, if you realize, guns rarely instantly kill people.
well, no, but they usually fatally kill people. I mean, or incapacitate them. I think the main.
But there's very few instances except a direct headshot.
Right.
That's often just instantly kills you.
Well, the thing is, usually I think the issue is that he got up and walked away from it after a single first aid roll from a doctor. That's what he said sort of broke it, I think. So, and I can understand that if you want a game where, despite the fact that there are fucking wizards running about in the American
But
Revolution.
if you want guns to, forget the magic. If you want guns to be realistic, well, all right.
Yeah.
Which then, well, hey, if you did do it that way, that might actually make you less likely to charge headfirst into a gunfight.
Right. But on the other hand, so the first thing, so I would explain the injury rules in detail and give examples to the realistic player. That's how I do. So, and then maybe house rule it so it's even more or less lethal depending on what the players are satisfied with.
Yeah.
So that they then know that if they pull a gun on somebody or somebody shoots at them, that they could be creating new characters pretty fucking quickly. So that's what I would do in that situation. I don't know. What would you do? Anything differently?
Well, I would say for those two, I would actually just see if a compromise could be reached.
Okay. Yeah, that's the main thing. The main technique, I guess, for dealing with expectations.
Same thing as in Congress.
Yeah.
Compromise.
Collaboration. We'll call it. Basically, every player has their own little preferences, and usually most of the time, the GM runs a game that everyone is more or less satisfied with. Some players would prefer slightly different types of games, but they have a tolerance, for a range of games,
As long as they have fun.
Yeah, as long as they have some fun in there, fun enough that it's worth going to, then you're running a good game because everyone remember the game changes too. The combat player sticks with a game even when there's a lot of talking around because he knows there's going to be a good fight later on.
And may find out, hey, this talking is actually kind of fun too.
Yeah. And so also, though, it would be easy to deal with the realistic player by showing them how the damage rules are and working with him to get it to where both of them agree. Get the player to agree beforehand, okay, these rules are satisfactory. I will deal with this beforehand. But with the steampunk player, the steampunk player might oh, well, there's no steampunk. Well, screw this game. I don't want to play. I would explain, tell him to give it a shot because I, in particular, with the very realistic games, was very surprised by, I know I mentioned this before, the World War II campaign where I was a civilian, a 30-point group's character as a Jewish doctor hiding out in Nazi Europe. And that was pretty interesting. I didn't have any magic powers. I wasn't a commando. I wasn't a badass. But just getting, surviving and performing heart surgery with, black market supplies and butcher's tools.
Yeah.
That was pretty fucking hardcore. And I dug it, and it was great. So I would tell the steampunk player to give it a shot. Because you sometimes a player's expectations can can change based on getting new input, having new games. That you can surprise them. Basically, change if you can't change the game, change the player. I think that's the main thing.
And even if and also you could compromise saying, okay, there's not going to be the fantastical steampunk stuff, but there were weird inventions in the Wild West.
Yeah.
I mentioned the hand-cranked Gatling gun.
Maxim gun, or was it Gatling?
It was the Gatling gun.
Maxim.
Maxim was World War I.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And there's that. There's the telephone, the telegraph. All that shit was was fairly new at one point.
Yeah.
And you could even do customized versions of something like like your gadgetry could be like a pistol with specialty ammo. Mm-hmm. Something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be the Wild West, that movie.
The giant walking mechanical spider.
Yeah. Right. It does it doesn't have to be fantastic,
fireballs.
Fantastical.
I see. Okay. Fair enough. So I mean the main thing is when dealing with expectations, if you come up with let's say you do your best, try and get everybody satisfied before you start the game. But problems still come up later on. You did your best. You're in the middle of the game, or you're running a game, and someone is like, "Oh, this is stupid. This is dumb. This is." How do you deal with expectation problems in the game? While you're running,
which is a little harder to fix.
Yeah, it is a little harder to fix, but it can still be done. Again, the main thing is to either change the game, change the player, which is usually better than changing the game, or do a little of both. Try and get everybody sort of compromise to where you change the game a little bit, the player gives a little bit, and then everybody's happy, or at least playing. So I think the thing is, we talked a little earlier, Tom, about the sort of the hot spots of where expectations usually are violated. And we sort of found 5 areas: genre, style, violence level, maturity, and consistency. Genre encompasses the genre that you're playing in, which is not just the types of games you're running, but the goals the players expect themselves. Like, say you have a scenario, players fighting a monster. In an action genre game, players would kill the monster. In a horror genre game,
survive the monster.
Yeah, or banish the monster, or maybe kill the monster, but the monster is going to kill or drive you insane. It's much more difficult. So mechanically, the game would be similar, but
I think that's precisely the reason I just don't think my other group would like Call of Cthulhu very much. They are thoroughly wedded to being able to stop whatever horrible thing is loose.
Right.
And
you can't change their expectations.
No, well, not with that one. Actually, they're not willing. I just don't think the group is willing to do that. I tried it one time with them, and it threw them completely off. When they actually realized they had to run, they couldn't stay and stand and fight.
Oh, even just once, that was just...
You could tell, you could see the confusion. It was like hater, like, I'm not having fun. I don't get this.
You mean you would throw a monster at me that I can't kill?
Or like, I gave them guns, but I gave them 45s, not M60s or plasma ejectors. They have 45 pistols.
Right.
Which against this monster only pisses it off.
Right.
Yeah, and there were a couple of them that still just stood their ground and shooting it.
So their expectations were so set in stone that you could only change the game. You couldn't change them.
Well, it was after I had the monster tore the arm off one of them. They finally got, maybe we should run.
So did you change their expectations after that game? Did they decide that horror was more interesting or anything, or were they more firmly set in their ways?
They set about to actually investigate the monster at some point, which I had given them several opportunities to do so.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, maybe we should, and not just researching like, all right, well, how do we kill it? It's more like, okay, where did it come from? What are the local legends surrounding it?
Okay.
And what is that? The crazy guy that frequents the general store who constantly talks about the beastie in the swamp.
Okay.
And when they realized that violence could not stop it, there was a little bit of like, all right, I see what we're gonna do now. It'd still be great if we could. I said one person actually made me said, all we get are 45s. Well, how many clips of ammo? Like, it's a shoulder. I said, it's a standard shoulder holster your gun and 2 magazines. So, like, actually, one guy did a quick style like, okay, 45, 8 rounds. We only have 24 bullets. This is someone that is used to have the trunk full of assault weapons and more ammo than in Fort Bragg.
Right.
It was a change for them.
And so, how did they deal with the you changing their violating their expectations, basically?
Well, the thing is, I told them flat out that this is a Halloween, this is a horror game.
Right.
This isn't going to be like the kind of stuff we normally do.
Right.
They're like, all right, no, we're good. And maybe they just didn't hear me correctly, but they finally got into the swing of things really about towards the last 30 minutes. When the end game was approaching.
I see. You sort of bring up a good point. The players said that they were fine, but they really didn't understand. I mean, some players will sort of brush it off or pay lip service to that idea. of, oh yeah, I get it, but when there's
When
a
push
difference
comes to
between
shove.
saying, yeah, when push comes to shove, there's a big difference. So if you're running the game, you're preparing a game, you need to keep that in mind, that the players aren't going to be as observant about it as you are, as the GM, probably, but not always. So that's one of the big hotspots, genre. So the next one is style, and style is like the mood of the game, the theme of the game, things like that. And usually it's I see it like you could run an action game, but you could run a realistic action game or a cinematic action game.
Yeah.
And that's a style choice. Cinematic action game, you're jumping out of windows, shooting with shooting pistol in each hand.
Or like a
John Wooing,
an HKMP5 in each hand, doing a slow turn on a rope.
Yeah, doves are flying in the air, barrels are randomly exploding, cats and dogs living together,
mass hysteria.
Yeah. Whereas a realistic action game, it's like Rainbow Six, tactical squad entry, shotgun rounds,
or Die
rounds.
Hard.
Yeah,
I use Die Hard as inspiration for a lot of my games.
Well, that's cinematic though. That's not tactical.
No, not really. Not the first Die Hard movie.
One man against a whole terrorist squad.
Well, the thing is though, he never does the two guns going at once.
It's still cinematic.
Well, no, the fighting is pure brawling. There's no martial arts or in it, and I don't consider that cinematic.
I consider tactical to be modeled after real world gunfighting or violence, basically. Like on Iraqi, the squad tactics used by urban close quarters combat squads in Baghdad or something like that. Or Rainbow Six is the ultimate tactical game.
Well,
basically.
I still consider Die Hard not a cinematic.
Well, you can,
but that's a matter of opinion.
You would be the only one with that opinion.
I'm sure there are others out there.
And they would be wrong,
but as the point is, yes, you need to decide early on which one you're going to do.
Right. Well, in tactical games, though, you would punish people who did cinematic choices. Someone who jumps on a window.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have a great example of that.
Okay.
That actually, my friend Aaron, who I think I've mentioned before.
Oh yes, he's been on the show.
Yeah, we were doing a
Defender of Sluggy.
Yeah, a Iron Age heroes. Iron Age is in the era of the comics.
Right.
Dark
the 80s one.
Yeah. 80s one, and he was playing a superhero. I forget exactly what it was, but he was out and they had teamed up with an SAS team who were there going after the same target, and they said we can help you out, and the SAS guys said all right. The leader of the team said, all right, you can do it. It says, but we're in command. You follow my orders. Like, you go where I tell you, when I tell you. His character went off on his own to try, try and do his own thing. And then the commander needed him for something, and he wasn't there. And then a gunfight erupted where they won. They were just mooks. But then when he got up to the commander and said, all right, here's what I found, the commander just decked him in the face.
Ooh.
And said, and basically pointed his gun at him and says, when you're under my command, you do exactly as I tell you. Don't you ever do that again. And it was one of the, he actually, real life, was shocked that happened. I said, well, can't I see that coming and dodge it? Like, no, he just decked you in the face with the butt of his gun.
Right.
And that was one. It says, unfortunately, in realistic, you have to follow your commander's orders.
Right.
So I quickly got away from the realistic combat at that point.
Right. Well, also in tactical games, you would punish people who would make bad. Also, tactical games usually have much more realistic damage rules. One or two bullets, you'd be dead. But anyway, so that's just one example of styles. There's many different styles, and players need to understand not the style of the game. The mood, what sort of themes you're wanting to do.
Like if you're running a superhero game you said you're gonna run like a 4-color,
right?
Silver Age kind of comic thing. You can't suddenly start bringing in rape and serial murder.
Which brings us to the next hot spot of expectations: violence level.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, technically, that's more of like a style issue, but that's such a big.
It needs its own section.
Because violence is just the most common type of conflict in RPGs, and so players need to understand. One thing I recently got the Paranoia XP RPG, and they have 3 different levels or 3 styles of playing, like classic, straight, and like wacky, basically.
Right.
And in each one, you have different, expectations of violence. Like in straight games, characters aren't killed as much, and in wacky games, they're killed all the time. So that's sort of the thing. How durable are player characters? How plot immune are they, and how
how violent is the violence?
Yeah, and not just that. Like if your player gets near death, how does he get permanent injuries? Like in D&D, you go into negative hit points, you get a healing potion, you're like, oh, I'm fine. And whereas in GURPS, if you get, you can have your arm torn off, by a single bullet or attack by a monster. So,
and it's the same style of play. Like I like to compare Rambo 3 and Rambo and the last Rambo movie.
Right.
One in Afghanistan. Yeah, it's violent. He shoots a lot of guns. There's not a lot of gore in it. When he kills people, you see blood kind of spurting from bullets, but not much. Then there's that last scene in Rambo 4 where people are being cut in half.
The one from 2008.
Yeah. Where the 50 caliber machine gun's cutting guys in half and showing it vividly.
Yeah.
That's two different things. There's violence and then there's
ultra violence. Yeah. Or basically like Garth Ennis writing a mainstream comic versus Garth Ennis or Warren Ellis writing a Avatar press comic, which I just read one new Garth Ennis comic called The Crossed, which is from Avatar, which is basically a zombie apocalypse, only they're not zombies. It's just they become the sociopathic people who still retain enough intelligence to use tools. And it is literally the most violent comic I've read outside of some manga. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's excessive even by Garth Ennis standards. Really.
And that's pretty damn excessive.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Even by Avatar Press standards. I don't know if do you know Avatar Press?
I don't think I'm familiar with them.
They did Frank Miller RoboCop reimagining as a comic book series.
I've only read a couple of those, but yeah, that alone is enough. Okay, I know where this is going.
Yeah, exactly. So, violence, because people get really squicked out, really weirded out by violence if it's not what they expect. So, and the one thing you don't want is like a bunch of normal gamers, and then there's that one motherfucking guy who's like, yeah, and then I skin my dead enemies alive and drink.
I take their scalps. I make a necklace of their ears.
Yeah, exactly. That motherfucker. There's always one. Just got to deal with that motherfucker, especially in convention games. But
yeah.
Like I was running Monsters and Other Childish Things, and one of the players, ran 2 games of it at Gen Con last year. One game, one of the players wanted to kill one of the kids who had been pestering. He's like, I want my monster to kill Sally. She's a bitch. Basically. It's like,
I remember the game I played with you. I was playing a kid that a trench coat mafioso type.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I realized, it's okay to play him if he's probably going to go do that when he's in high school.
Yeah.
But right now he's just antisocial and hates everyone.
Right.
Come on, realize what you're doing.
Yeah. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And sort of related to that, and the fourth hotspot is maturity. And maturity
I'm not talking about keeping the fart jokes to a minimum either.
Right. The AB3 stories are the classic example. Everyone AB3's maturity expectations are blatantly violated in pretty much all of those stories.
Horrifically violated in ways that you'd have to have a tube of
achy breaky mythos, having to go shirtless and wrestle for sanity rolls is
and having yourself you have to talk with a lisp now because you lost this much sanity.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of thing that that's more of a basic social etiquette thing rather than a gaming specific thing. But there's always going to be the players, who make rape jokes or, dead baby jokes or children murdering rapist things or, just bad, tasteless jokes and stuff
that actually you have to stop the game for a few minutes. Just like, all right, let's cool off here.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. Make sure err on the side of caution. In the New World campaign we've been playing, we all make tasteless jokes, but
they're tasteless, but they're not offensive.
Yeah.
I think
it's like Maxim magazine. Tasteless.
Now, Frog Snatch.
Yeah.
Offensive, yes, but we were laughing so hard for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think was it that, or was it that frog Jesus dried up for your sins?
Well, there was that too. But
I think that was funny. I don't know. They were both pretty funny.
Yes, they were, and we laughed.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one area that's definitely you can't the game can't deal with that. That's basically
that's a group thing. That's a group thing
and social etiquette thing. So, err on the side of caution. The last thing though is consistency. By consistency, I mean you have to run. We've stressed this before. Run an internally consistent game. That means if say you have a monster that the players encounter, a werewolf, and they kill it with silver bullets. The next time,
they shoot it with silver bullets and it wounds it or whatever.
Well, we'll say kill.
Okay,
They kill the werewolf with silver bullets. Next time they run into a werewolf and they shoot him with silver bullets, it doesn't do a damn thing, and it's you forget about that, or it's because you forgot about the first encounter, or any number of reasons, and the players are pissed off because they're like, what the hell? Or, their ally who they saved, like they saved the princess. The princess, oh, I'll do whatever you want. I'll grant you a favor. You are friends of this kingdom. And then when the players come back, it's like, hey, princess, we have these bad guys chasing after us. Can use our favor and you help us out? And she says, no, I hate you. Go away. And the player's like, what the hell? I thought she was on our side.
Yeah. Now, granted, this is a problem. Like, if that happens, it happens to everyone.
Yeah,
you can get out of it. You can get out of it. It's one of those that you can steer yourself away from.
Yeah. Well,
in the case of I think you mentioned before, like in the case of the werewolf, do it like, okay, well, this is a different kind of werewolf.
Right. Well, the main thing is I know at least when I run a game and I violate the consistency of the world is because I forgot something. Or like the names of the goddamn NPCs, like Cody is like, what's
and the fact that Cody is adamant, like, okay, which NPC was this, Ross? Do his voice, Ross.
Yeah. Well, that's just
the look of discomfort on your face is priceless when we do that.
So try and keep the world as internally consistent as possible. Also, players though can violate that when they make their characters inconsistent. If your character is described as being someone who hates orcs and wants to kill orcs no matter what, but suddenly it becomes advantageous to have orc allies, like, oh yeah, we'll help, I'll accept the orcs' help. Then you're violating the consistency of the world by being a selfish jerk. By suddenly it's easy for you to be in front of orcs, and then so don't just defend my character is deep and complex. You don't get him.
Like no, he's not.
Yeah. So those are sort of the main areas you need that expectations usually get violated. But one thing though, there are exceptions to expectations. Occasionally, violating the expectations can be good.
Yes, it can.
GMs like say, let's go back to the werewolf with the silver bullets thing. Like you're saying, it could be a different type of werewolf, or it could be a guy in a werewolf costume
who's wearing a flak jacket.
Yeah. So players shouldn't immediately jump on something that's like, oh, you're violating my expectations.
Give it a little. Yeah. Just go with it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, it won't take long for you to realize when it's been violated in a good way or he's just stringing you along.
Yeah.
That'll become obvious very quickly.
Well, it might take a while, but maybe that's the hook for the damn scenario. Like, if there's something really weird or inconsistent, it's like, how could his body be teleported? His legs are here and his arms are here. That's not how teleportation works at all. It's like, that's the damn scenario. Let him throw you the damn plot hook, So, and then let the GM violate the expectations of the players every once in a while.
It's easier to get around when the GM does it.
Of course, on the other hand, though, players can violate the GM's expectations by doing something totally unexpected, and
like you prepared your grand adventure, like, well, what about this desert over here? Let's go there.
Yeah, or just totally hypothetical question. Totally hypothetical. Players, you set up this awesome attack. The players are going to go to this outpost and defend it from a massive horde of enemies. It's going to be like Zulu the movie. It's going to be epic. And the player's like, no, let's make a deal with the natives so that they don't attack the fortress. And you're like, oh, well, okay, if they do this, but that'll piss off your other allies, so you have to fight them. Like, no, you don't want to piss them off either.
Or by the way, can I just take this moment to share a thought
Yeah.
I've had with your game.
Yeah.
It is something I've realized after 10 sessions of that game. It is really, really hard to be good. It is extremely hard to be good in that game.
Yeah, in D&D The New World, Tom is the lawful good fighter, and unlike the other characters who are unaligned, basically, he is always doing the right thing. And I've made it so that doing the right thing is always more difficult than being selfish.
Trust me, I know I don't sound like it in character, but there are times where like, God damn it! Why do I have to be the good one?
Yeah, and again, this scenario, the horde of lizardmen were about to attack this outpost. Players were there to defend the outpost. Players make a deal with the lizardmen. The lizardmen want, a better deal, basically, than the people who paid them to attack the outpost.
Well, it was my idea to try to parlay with them.
Yeah.
And then I find out they want something there's no way I could let them have.
Slaves, basically. Hundreds of slaves, or, lots of slaves that the lizardmen would mistreat or
Eat.
Basically. So, what are the players going to do? The players eventually decided to trade up and fight a monster that they can probably not take.
At level 12 Hydra. I believe.
A solo monster, while they're level 7. And this is a monster that will hit and run and can swim very well in a swamp.
Yeah. And right now, I'm realizing it would have been better just to freaking fight them.
Yeah.
The thing is, I can't fault myself because I realize, hey, my character probably would have actually tried to talk his way out of it.
Of course, now you have a hostage who's being held by the lizardman,
who we can't leave there.
Yeah,
because he's one of the ones. He's a Gripply, and therefore we will protect him to the death.
Yes. So when the players do the unexpected, well, I know we talked about improvising before, but the basics are one, Schrodinger's dungeon, which is whatever dungeon you prepared happens to be the one the players decide to go into.
Just change the walls, or change the
file off the serial numbers. If the cave becomes a temple, becomes a crypt, becomes a fortress, becomes a spaceship, whatever the players happen to find. So the next one is a cheat sheet. Now, what I mean by a cheat sheet is have a couple of pages, a couple of encounters ready to go at any given time. Which is they not necessarily fighting encounters, but say, a puzzle, a trap, a curse, social,
a prisoner trapped in a cage that's begging for help.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a perfect encounter. It'll keep them tied up for a while, so
while you can rack your brain to figure out what to do, where to go from there.
And the third thing is to know your game world, your setting, well enough that you understand how it would react to your players' actions, and by the setting, not just the landscape itself, but the NPCs.
And if you're a beginner, this is where running a pre-gen stuff really comes in handy.
Well, usually, because sometimes that becomes sort of a straitjacket too, because then you're sort of like, oh well, I don't know how to go off the lines, I don't know how to make it my own yet. So, but in general, I feel like if they go into the desert, you should know the desert well enough to have them fuck around for a few hours.
Or in the case you should know well enough that you're probably not going to find an aboleth there.
Right. Have a sphinx or a mummy or whatever else, or a caravan that's been cursed by a mummy that's been cursed by an aboleth that was cursed by a dragon in a dungeon. Because that's how Dungeons and Dragons goes. It all goes back. I have no idea.
You're reaching, Ross.
I am reaching, but that would be a hell of an adventure, man. That would
play it.
So
fuck yeah.
Those are the main things. Understand your game world. Have a cheat sheet and have Schrodinger's dungeon. So, any other thoughts on expectations, Tom?
Well, I've said this before, but as far as expectations go, expect them to change, always and forever.
Mm-hmm.
If the day you plan on this going exactly as you would plan, whether you're a GM or a player, is your day you're going to find yourself stuck somewhere. Mm-hmm. I've found it. I've been gaming for the better part of 22, 23 years now, and not one game I've been in or run has ever gone exactly according to plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even today I'm running games and I have no idea how the players will resolve them. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to fight the lizardman.
But yes, that's part of why you enjoy running it.
Yeah.
Because also you don't know where this shit's going to go.
Yeah. I've read a lot of people online say, "Oh, the GM controls everything. You know how the game's going to wind up." It's like,
no, you really don't.
Yeah, because if you're doing the right type of game, you'll have an idea, a ballpark maybe, but you just like the Hydra thing. I made that up off the top of my head. I was like,
and we jumped at it.
Yeah.
Until we realized we can't. No, actually, I think even in spite of the fact that we can't take this thing, we're still like, it's probably the best thing to do here.
Yeah.
And then we figure like, well, we found out they're controlled by a dragon. Like, all right, well, okay, we take out the Hydra now, and then when we're higher, we go kill the dragon.
That'll be fun. So I've got 2 adventures already ready to go. Kill a Hydra, kill a dragon. So
kill the pig, drink its blood.
Yes. Of course, we have coming up, Tom, you have a new letter.
I do.
And then we have some shout-outs and an anecdote or 2. And
what was that? What was that enunciation? Or 2?
I don't know. I'm tired.
Yeah, I can tell. You.
Yeah.
Would you like a Starbucks?
I would like a Starbucks.
Well, you can't have one. I'm not driving you there.
Okay. Well, we'll be back.
Dear Splinkrith, before this letter even gets underway, I can hear the reaction of the masses jumping out of their chairs and covering their computers with caustic urine. A letter dealing with a palladium property? Doesn't Tom have nothing but bile when it comes to anything palladium? Well, first of all, thank you for tuning in enough to know how I feel about palladium. Secondly, while it's true that I have enough bile about palladium built up to dissolve the Exxon Valdez, not all my missives about palladium were aimed to strike them down. You may recall that my letter to Emperor Prosek was simply advice on how to avoid the fates of all the other dictators whose armies had wicked cool uniforms. And lastly, yes, this letter's aimed to castrate. The target of my wrath is the Splugorth in general and Splinkrith in particular. I'm going to flat out tell you that this rage is by no means the fault of Kevin Sembieta or anyone else at Palladium Games. This comes from an old gaming associate of mine. It was several years ago when we were in a local food court, stuffing our pie holes with grease-laden pizza from Sbarro's and drinking fruit punch with enough sugar to put everyone in mainland China into a diabetic coma. I forget the details, but at some point my associate said that the Splugorth were the Cthulhu of Rifts. It was impossible to comprehend the sheer rage that blossomed from that comment. Comparing Cthulhu to the Splugorth is like trying to compare the Soviet Emperor bomb to a match caught in the Galveston storm of 1900. For those of you who are clueless about what I've just said, don't worry. You are simply the result of a school system that has no use for you. Use the Google. Anyway, back to my anger. The Splugorth can't be Cthulhu for the simple reason that human minds can comprehend him. Hell, for all the power the Splinkrith has, his motives are human ones. He wants wealth and power, the kind of power that comes from being the leader of a country. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you honestly think that Cthulhu is sitting in this sunken city of Relay, thinking up ways to improve his stock portfolio? Hell no. Cthulhu is scary because his actions are impossible for mere mortals to understand. And am I the only one who noticed that it is possible to permanently kill Splinkrith? It says that he has 56,000 MDC, and he must be reduced to negative 4,000 MDC to completely destroy him. If a cosmic horror can be killed utterly by mortal weapons, then it's not really a cosmic horror. Just a regular horror you have to hit a lot. You can bring the fucking Death Star dipped in cyanide and Ebola Zaire against Cthulhu, and he'll be back 1d10 rounds later. Period. Do whatever you want, he'll be back to chomp down in your tiny mortal ass in no time. The point of this rambling, semi-coherent bullshit is simple. The Splugorth and Cthulhu are not to be compared. One is a truly incomprehensible godlike being who has existed for hundreds of millions of years and will one day rise to reclaim the earth in the name of the old ones. The other is the big bad guy that you aspire to level up your heroes to finally kill. Period. And now, children, go look up the Soviet Emperor bomb and the Galveston storm of 1900. Learning is fun.
Said either.
No,
I don't know why I said.
And hell, I wrote this letter like just before we recorded this episode or started to.
Yeah, that's true. Because you're a horrible person.
Everything I read, by the way, I want you to know everything I read on this show is a rough draft.
Right. Because that's
Everything.
all it deserves.
Ross,
no,
why must you cut me down and my creative juices
cutting
are
the
flowing?
show down, actually.
Dude, Ross, what the fuck are you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Self-depreciating humor. It makes me seem more humble and more, modest.
Dude, your head's so far up your ass.
Well, that's what the Alien Invasion Manual said about humans, their customs. Not that I am one.
Not that you're a human.
Not that I'm an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's profound, man.
So let's have some shout-outs. First off, a classic novel, considered to be similar to, our titles obviously play on Great Expectations. I just put a period in there and say Great Expectations.
You like to be sarcastic too. Great Expectations.
Yes, exactly. So this is another classic novel, only it's been updated for the 21st century, and it's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yeah, I knew that zombies had to be in there somewhere if you were giving it as a shout out.
It hasn't come out yet, but just they have the title alone and the cover.
That sold you.
Yeah, pretty much. They've taken the original Pride and Prejudice novel, Mr. Darcy, and Regency romance and all that, and added zombies to it. Lots of scenes of zombies attacking and eating people. So one of the classics of romantic literature,
dude,
with zombies.
That's being made a movie. I guarantee you it's going to be made as a low budget movie somewhere.
Hopefully, we can hope that we can have. Oh, Mr. Darcy, I love you so. Oh my God, zombies! Ah! So
it's your opinion when anyone ever screams, "Oh my God, zombies!" they say it like that.
Pretty much.
It must be very sad in your world.
Well, how about your shout-outs, Tom? Do you have one?
Yeah, I got a couple, but I'll do one right now.
Because I got more too.
Yeah. One is a show on Adult Swim that's called Look Around You,
right?
Which is like a parody of like 1980s BBC educational videos,
right?
Or educational videos in general, but it's from the BBC,
right?
And it's like a science educational video, like those little programs that you have to follow along in a workbook yourself,
right?
And they're parodies and they're freaking hilarious and not obviously so.
Right. True. So yeah, the Look Around You. It's also on YouTube, so I'll link to the YouTube videos.
Yeah, do that, man.
Yeah, they're all.
It's worth a look if you haven't watched it already.
Any particular favorites? Water.
I think Water and Sulfur are my favorite.
Water's good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. What do I? Armored Trains. This is a book about armored trains in wartime, and it has pictures. Basically, I was browsing through Borders, and I saw this book. It's a thin book, and I was like, I can't not buy this book because it has pictures of trains with cannons on it.
So
that's war porn.
It pleased you.
Yes, it was like, oh, they're useless, anachronistic military technology.
And you must have it.
It looks cool. They're useless, but they have guns on them and they move on track. Yeah, so
it reduced you to a quivering mass of jelly.
Well, I was like, I want to turn this into an RPG scenario.
You would.
Probably Call of Cthulhu. So, yeah, Armored Trains. It's pretty good. I got one more, but do you want to do yours next?
Sure. My other one is hardly, it's hard to find, but I just got season 1 on DVD of Lewis Black's Root of All Evil.
Well, that's a show on Comedy Central where the two stand-up comics debate about something.
And then he delivers his final verdict on which one is the worst.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's...
I was never a fan, but whatever.
No, first of all, I love Lewis Black, and the episodes are funny to watch, and
he's so dreamy.
Ross, settle down, put it back in your pants. Seriously. No one wants to see that.
Yeah.
But no, it's just a way to watch Lewis Black before until he finally decides to do another stand-up act.
Okay. Sounds good. Last one is a webcomic called Lovecraft is Missing. And
I'm going to have to hazard a guess and say Lovecraft is Missing.
Yeah. It's in the 30s or 20s or 30s about pulp writers, books of occult magic, and Lovecraft himself. He's in it, and he went missing.
And they're trying to find him?
Yeah, there's some people. There's a woman and a guy trying to find him, a pulp writer and a librarian.
Well, if there's any mortal that Cthulhu could just hang out with, I'd say it'd be him.
Yeah, So, haha, it's neat. It's got really great art actually, and
That helps.
yeah, good RSS feed. So check it out. It just started last year.
Great
so.
artwork can make up for bad writing, and
It's got both though.
good
good
writing
art.
can make up for bad artwork. But you get good writing and good artwork together,
You got yourself.
you got yourself some shit.
Yeah.
That's what you got. Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So, of course, lastly but not least, we have some anecdotes. So,
You want to do yours first?
yeah, I'll do mine. Now, this is a game I've recorded, but just thought I'd give you a little sample. Basically, as I mentioned before, I've written and published a 4th edition adventure called Tides of Doom. And it's a Lovecraftian dungeon for level 1 characters in the book In Search of Adventure for Goodman Games. And I ran it at VisionCon, which is the local gaming con here in Springfield. And I mentioned earlier, I think in a previous episode, that I did it after hours. And
Alcohol was flowing.
yeah, alcohol was at one of the hotel rooms. Some of my friends had booked for the con, and people kept wandering in and out, talking about the special $5 brownies available in room so-and-so, the room down the hall. So, yeah. And what was fun, though, is that I created these corruption rules. Basically, keeping in mind the Lovecraftian theme, that it was a evil dungeon that the longer you spent in it, the more corrupted you became, physically and mentally. So I had one player who got, I think, like webbed fingers and started hallucinating about, he saw deformity everywhere, even when there was none. And so he had some fun role playing that. But the poor halfling paladin, he failed all of his savings throws. He was one savings throw away from death when they finally finished the scenario. He developed a phlegmy cough. His bones started to warp and thicken, and then he got a hunchbacked halfling.
So it's just hunchback, small.
Yeah. So I don't know how that would look either, but it was pretty crazy, and the players kept nearly dying, no matter how many what they fought. They were doing pretty good, and they had 5 characters with them, so they, full size party. But man, I just beat their asses in, and like at the end, well, you'll have to listen to it to find out what happens. But it was a very close game. So if you want a very challenging scenario for your players, I would get Tides of Doom for Goodman Games, and check that out, because that'll be pretty awesome. So,
All right.
yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, Tom, what you got?
Well,
you got?
Well, I got one. This is once again involving that game you were part of for a couple of sessions. The
Dinosaur GURPS game.
Yeah, it's the distant future, and sentient dinosaurs are the dominant species, and players were playing the few humans who were brought back, cloned from old DNA.
Right.
Well, in this particular one, this was after you had stopped playing it.
Yeah.
There was a moment where the big bad guy had trapped one of their friends inside a mine trap.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they needed him, so they went in to get him out. So what followed was about an hour and a half of this adventure inside someone else's mind. Except the bad guy is also influencing stuff. So this guy, when he was, back in his world, the regular world, was a military officer. So there's a lot of places that are like, the Pentagon or West Point, except they're being influenced by the bad guy who's controlling it. So and all the players they come up, like they're on an airplane that's flying, and they're not sure. And then the stewardess comes over, which turns out to be just the bad guy in a stewardess outfit, and saying that requesting more drinks than is allowed is an executable offense, and then pulls a gun and starts trying to shoot them, and he keeps showing up. Like, no matter what they do, like, okay, one of my particularly favorite moments, which I just totally made this whole thing up on the spot. They need to get someplace else in the mine, so they get on a bus, which they get on, and is nothing but ninjas are on it. It's like one of those double-decker British buses, and everyone on it is a ninja. And of course, they talk like the stupid, movie ninja. Said like, "Sir, welcome to the ninja bus."
Okay.
And they love that. I kept that up for like 20 minutes just because it's over, but they really seem to like it. So
okay.
And that was when I It was afterwards when they got to what they were trapped in here, couldn't find a way out. When I introduced what they said was one of their most favorite NPCs of all time, which was Jeff. Jeff was an iguana. They were in what had to be this guy's office, and there was an iguana kind of crawling around on the shelves. They noticed him, like, what do we do? And he finally says, like Jesus Christ, people, don't you see what's going on here? It says like, follow me. It's like, I can see you need my help because you're gonna be fucking doomed here if you're not. And so he started barking out orders like an officer does. And so they finally get out and they're going into the Pentagon level of this mindscape. And as soon as like the officers, there's like officers in a big war room. As soon as they go in with this iguana kind of like riding on one shoulder, it's like, Jeff, sir, it's good to see you, sir. He says, we're in a tight situation. He's like, Eddie, soldier, tell me what's going on. And I just have a conversation with him and this guy talking, military lingo in harsh tones. That went on for another 20 minutes. And after that was one that had to stop. Like, okay, we need to stop to catch our breath here. Because there's so much they're laughing so hard, so I still get talked about. I guess this is me toting my GM horn that I'm so awesome.
Yes,
I want you to admit that I'm awesome, Ross.
You are awesome.
Thank you. I don't believe that, but it'll do.
Okay,
but that's one of my I love doing improv. Total improv on games sometimes when it works.
Yeah. The Legend of Jeff lives on. So.
Yeah, and
that reminds me actually of have you played a game called Psychonauts?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's the whole premise is you go into. Was that an inspiration or did you?
Yeah, actually, I never played it. I'd seen it played and I heard you talk about it.
Okay, just the idea of entering people's minds and it being a whole level
and you having to rescue them from their own minds.
Yeah.
So and taking what that person was and then fucking it up a little bit.
Yeah. Very good. So if before we end this episode, I'd like to remind people, if you like our show, please give a good review on iTunes or whatnot. Tell your friends about it. Link to it on other sites and all that jazz.
So soon we will be Legion.
Yes, and please let us know if you're interested in me writing up a 4th ed D&D campaign primer for the New World. If you'd like to I could write a whole series of them describing it all out. If you'd want to play in the New World, let me know. I'd love to write them out. I just
and then tell us your adventures.
Yes, tell us. Yeah, don't forget we always need more anecdotes. Anything else, Tom? Keep watching the skies.
And please,
good night, and good luck.
And please like me.
Oh, and please like Tom because God knows
because Ross abuses me all the time.
Yes, back to the slave mines. All right, well, this is Ross Payton for Role Playing Public Radio.
And Tom, please help me. Ross is crazy.
I'm stopping the recording now.